What's going on, guys? It's a sad day in hockey today as Patrice Bergeron officially retires from the NHL. He had an outstanding career, putting up almost 1,300 games played with over 1,000 points. Obviously, the big thing of note, of course, would be these 6 Selke trophies. Absolute domination. One of the best two-way forwards in the game, pretty much as soon as he entered the league up until his retirement. He also won a King Clancy trophy, a Mark Messier trophy, 2011 Stanley Cup with the Bruins, captained the team to the best ever regular season we've seen in NHL history. Now he calls it quits. So my question is, can the Boston Bruins still make the playoffs next year without Patrice Bergeron? Not only are they losing him, they've also traded away Taylor Hall, didn't bring back Bertuzzi or Orlov. There's also questions about whether or not Krejci's coming back to the Boston Bruins. So their center depth's going to be nowhere near what it was before. Of course, having Bergeron play first line center, on the power play, on the PK. I think Pavel Saka is now their first line center. So let's find out how they're going to do. First things first, guys, I've actually got to retire Bergeron in game. Now to do that, I'm trading him a team career. We can see I've got all the other retired players. Justin Braun there, Hornqvist, Holtby. So Bergeron joins the likes of them. But as you guys can see here, the Boston Bruins still have elite talent. They got Pastrnak, McAvoy, Marchand still on the team. Again, it's really just their center depth that's completely gone away. In terms of team rating, they're 91 overall there. So they're tied with Tampa Bay as the highest rated team in the Atlantic Division still, even without Bergeron. Should mention too, all these ratings are actually updated with all the free agent signings. I've been going through and doing that the past few days. Still have to edit the prospects a bit, but we'll have a new franchise out for you guys very, very soon. And now, guys, I'll show you what the Boston Bruins are going to look like next year without Patrice Bergeron. Again, as I mentioned, signed up for them is a big issue now. You got Pavel Saka as your first line center. He's not a bad player, but he's not a first line center, that's for sure. Luckily, he's got 2 elite wingers, though, on each side, in Brad Marchand and David Pastrnak. Second line there, JVR, Coyle, DeBrusk. Isn't really the best second line. Third line, you got AJ Greer, Morgan Geekie, Trent Frederick. Fourth line, you got Boquist, Brown, Lucic. Actually noticed a lot of former Devils on this team. You got Zaka, Greer, Boquist. Defensively here, very, very solid. Lindholm, McAvoy, top pair. Shankirk, Grizzly on the second. Forbert, Carlo on the bottom. Goaltending-wise, of course, you got Allmark starting, Simon backing him up. A great, great tandem there. You got the Vezina Trophy winner and one of the best young goalies in the league. Now, in terms of the power play for this team, even without Bergeron, that first unit still looks really good. You can see they're getting a +5. Second unit, though, definitely, doesn't have as much depth. You guys can see the 4-mans there if you're curious too about the PK. Obviously, Bergeron was a big part of the PK. Now Charlie Coyle's going to be relied on heavily. As I mentioned before, Bergeron is one of the best two-way forwards in the league, which is why he won 6 Selke trophies. So not having on the PK definitely hurts. Also, one of the best face-off takers in the league. You guys can see that I have at like 95 face-offs or whatever, 99 D awareness. So obviously, he's not only a big loss to this team, but also their PK. I'm looking at the rest of it there. It's not too bad. You guys can see the 3-mans there too. And I almost forgot, guys. You might be wondering, where's David Krejci? Well, so far in real life, he has not re-signed yet to Boston Bruins. Basically, I think it's going to be 50-50, him coming back to Boston or retiring. So in this simulation, we're going worst case scenario where both Bergeron and Krejci retire. Right now, I've got him in the AHL because obviously he hasn't officially announced his retirement yet. We're still going to wait, to see what happens. So if you guys use my roster, the Bruins still have his rights. Waiting until that official announcement date. So without Krejci on the team, in terms of the captaincy, pretty easy to say who would get the C after Bergeron. It's got to go Brad Marchand, longest tenured player on the team. I feel like he's the heart and soul of the team, still an elite player. We got Pastrnak, Carl there wearing the 2 A's. Now, next I'll show you guys, preseason-wise, we're 4-1-1, Pastrnak a point per game. In terms of the ratings for this team, heading into the year, again, forward depth, not as good, 88 offense there with 93 D and 91 goaltending. So, I mean, you look at the other teams in the Atlantic, Red Wings got better, they got DeBrincat. And speaking of that, guys, I figure why not just go through every other team in the Atlantic and see how we match up. So Buffalo Sabres there, I like their top 6 a lot more. I mean, that's a nasty top 6. They got good forward depth. Defensively, they got Dahlin, they got power. Not as good defensively as us. Goaltending-wise, obviously not as good either, but it's an up-and-coming team. The next Atlantic team, as I mentioned, the Red Wings, we got Husso in net, of course, added DeBrincat. Our top 6 probably isn't as good. I think the bottom 6 is better. In terms of guys like Suter here who haven't, signed with a new team yet, I have their former team retaining their rights because in the 2022-2023 season, he was on the Red Wings. Of course, we added Gostisbehere on D, Justin Holl. So we're curious to see what Detroit does here. Next up, Florida Panthers obviously made the Stanley Cup final. They completely revamped their defense. They added Ekman-Larsson, they added Kulikov, they added Riley. I think they added somebody else as well. Forward-wise, they did lose to Claire, but I like their top 6 better than the Bruins. Goalies, they can run either Bobrovsky or Knight. Now after that, you got the Montreal Canadiens. Their goalie tandem there, definitely not as good as Boston's. Their top 6, I don't think is as good either. Obviously, their wingers are just nowhere near as good. Their bottom 6 isn't honestly terrible. Their defense, though, definitely is. Boston, I think, has the best defensive core in the Atlantic Division. And next year, guys, we got the Ottawa Senators. They've actually got a really nasty top 6. Curious to see who will kind of get that 6th spot, playing with most likely Norris and Batherson. I'm thinking it'll probably be Kubalik. Defensively, too, they got a full season now of Chikrin. Sanderson's getting better. Bernard Docker could also make the team. Goalie-wise, they signed Korpisalo. Forsberg's a good goalie as well, so that's a team that's going to be a lot more competitive this season. Tampa Bay Lightning, they still have Vasilevsky in net. They did lose Alex Killorn. They also lost Ross Colton, but when you look at their team, they brought in some solid bottom 6 players like Luke Glendening, like Connor Sherry. Nick Paul, I think, will definitely be in the top 6 over Archibald there, who they also brought in. Defensively, they still don't look too bad. They signed DeHaan there. Between Hedman, Sergachev, and Chernik, they should be okay. And then finally here, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Obviously, they got a lot better in D. Klingberg there for like the second power play. They actually have a decent D core. Of course, the big 4 there, Nylander, Matthews, Marner, Tavares going to lead that forward group. They signed Bertuzzi. They signed Domi. I feel like Domi probably plays in the top 6 over Yarncroc. They just re-signed Samsonov. Murray might get bought out, but he hasn't yet. So again, I feel like every single team in the Atlantic's has gotten better, aside from maybe Montreal Canadiens. So this Boston team definitely has the work cut out for them. Let's see what happens. All right, guys, so the season's now over. As you can see there, we finished the record of 44, 33, and 5. Drum roll, please. Did we make the playoffs? We did. As you can see there, we finished 3rd in the division, 93 points. Some pretty big surprises, though. The Red Wings had 103. Maple Leafs missed the playoffs. In the Metro Division, the Hurricanes popped off, which honestly, I think they will this year. Their defense is absolutely stacked. Surprised to see the Blue Jackets do just that bad. The Kings trade for Dubois, then finished last in the division below the Ducks. The Sharks as well, I think, are going to be a basement team this season. Central Division, the Stars somehow got last. The Stars are one of the best teams in that division. Now, in terms of team scoring here, Pastrnak over a point per game. Like to see that. Obviously, doesn't have Bergeron as his center, but him and Marchand still had solid years. Didn't do amazing or anything, but still decent. McAvoy actually very, very good. Should mention 2 guys, as always. Simonton scoring to medium. Shot frequency, though, is at high. So we had 6 players on the team, 50-plus points. Zach there almost put up 50 as a first-line center. I feel like if he does play between Marchand and Pastrnak this season, there's no way he doesn't get 50. In terms of the goaltending stats, Swayman barely played. They both had a little over 900. Goals against really weren't that good, which is kind of surprising because, again, this team has such a good defense. You think the goalies would have very good numbers. Now, in terms of the entire league, McDavid there, Art Ross, only 107, no 150. Kaprizov at 100, Draisaitl, McCarr 97. He's a cheat code in this game. Point, Peterson, Matthews, Kucherov, Rantanen. Goals here goes to Petey, 48. Oh, my. Defensive score. Of course, it's going to go to McCarr, but McAvoy there actually finished 4th. Goaltender stats here, Anderson had the most wins. Probably the best save percentage, too, for a starter. Yeah, 924. His goals against as well, 239. Again, that Hurricanes defense is just so stacked. So, we'll sim through the playoffs here, guys. I think in the first round, we're going to have the Red Wings, my team. I'm surprised to see them actually get in, but obviously when, Dallas and LA finished last in their divisions, pretty much anything can happen in the sim. But again, it's interesting to see Boston does make the playoffs. They didn't, set any records or anything like they did in real life, but they get in as a wild card team, and I feel like they still have a chance at a wild card, even without Bergeron. So far, we're up 2-0 on the Wings, and okay, 3-1 now. Sim game 5 and 6, and there we go. So we beat the Red Wings in 5, heading to round 2. We've actually got the Florida Panthers, of course, upset the Bruins in round 1 last year, beat them in game 7 after trailing with a minute to go. We're actually down 3-1 to the Panthers. Oh my, don't tell me it's exact same as last year. The Panthers knock out the Bruins, and they do. This time only in 5. That's funny. And now we got a big surprise in terms of the Stanley Cup, guys. The Washington Capitals actually win it. I mean, in terms of their team, they do bring in Max Pacioretty. I thought that was a really good signing. They should have a healthy Backstrom all year. Always obviously good for a bunch of goals. Marchand there was our playoff scoring leader, 10 points in 10 games. Behind him, Coyle actually did really well, 9 points. Same as Zaka with 8, Pastrnak 8. Let's see, Allmark here had decent numbers, 913, 2.8. I guess this team's kryptonite is literally just the Florida Panthers. We'll see Capitals here, swept the Rangers, beat the Hurricanes in 6, Panthers in 6, before sweeping the Seattle Kraken in the Stanley Cup final. In terms of the awards here, obviously we know all the team awards there. Individually, McDavid, Art Ross, and the Hart. McCarr, James Norris, Kaprizov, Lady Bing. Jack Quinn gets the Calder. That's interesting. Obviously, this would be for last year's Calder. For the upcoming season, everyone's thinking it's got to be Bedard. Ovechkin there, Conn Smythe Trophy. I'm sure he popped off. Anderson, of course, Vezina along with William Jennings. Zub, Bill Masterton. Predators coach Jack Adams. Couturier, Selke. I mean, if he's healthy, he has a chance, obviously, not competing against Bergeron, McDavid, Ted Lindsay, and then Petey there with the Maurice Richard. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, leave that thumbs up. Let me know in the comment section whether or not you think the Boston Bruins are going to make the playoffs. Obviously, EA did. Personally, I feel like they're probably still a wild card team, but time will tell.